So last month, for the entire month, the machine averaged 17.5. And most of that is attributed to ramp up and ramp down at the beginning of a run, at the end of a run. So 30 years ago when we bought the business, it was, we had small presses, we had copy machines, and basically, we print almost anything. Business cards, letterhead, which is, thank God we're not in that business anymore, and some marketing materials, but really very, very little work that was bound. Today, it's 100% of what we manufacture is bound, either saddle stitch or perfect bound, typically. I think the biggest change, though, is that it's the relationships that we use and that we have with our customers, where most days we have work in the building from most customers. So we're working with publishers that have ongoing needs. And so we build that relationship, and then the work pretty much flows through as their needs come. We firmly believe that there's three parties in relationship with us. It's our vendors, our customers, and our employees. And we owe them all something. So we talked earlier about employees, and if we're slow, what do we do? And we keep them. We don't send them home for the day. We don't tell them don't come in tomorrow, there's no work. There's always something to be done. We have a relatively young workforce, so we're doing a lot of training, and it's a good opportunity if we have some slow time to train and grow that workforce. Our goal is that 100% of our operators reach what we call job rate, which is full skill in the area. Unlike some shops, we don't have, there's not only one spot at the top. It's, everybody can reach that same level. And we've, firmly believe that helps us in terms of meeting customers' requirements, because the more people that can do what needs to be done, the more flexibility we have, and the better we have coverage if somebody's out sick or on vacation. There's a lot of people who are surprised that print still exists. We've chased the markets very, very carefully and very focused. But in the right spaces, there's a lot of print still going on. On the magazine side of our business, we typically work with smaller niche publications, and it's still the best way to get the message out. People have mailboxes, people still want to read. And on the book side of the business, we do a lot of training materials, and all the research has come back and reinforced that learning off electronics, a tablet or a computer, isn't nearly, doesn't meet the promise that everybody thought it was going to. We believe that the space we're in will continue to be important and will continue to offer opportunities. So, we don't see it changing. When, if anything, in our, the area of space that we work in, the shorter run area, we see that area growing. Some of it is knowledge material that we see has impact. And then on the, so it's on the book side and the magazine side, it's still a great vehicle to get advertising into people's hands. Not at the level that we're running today, but it's like anything else. You got to keep score to know how you're doing. What we find is that most of our employees are, they like it. They like knowing how they're doing. They like knowing where they're at compared to our expectations. When we were down at the inkjet before, they had a timesheet up from last night where they hit a new record of 309,000 feet in an 8-hour shift. And so now that's now the mark.
Yeah, I'm probably a little responsible for that, but also a lot gets owed to our COO, Scott. He comes from a Toyota production background, and really, he's a big believer as well in, really measuring the productivity to understand where the machines are at on any given day, and really making sure that the operators have the buy-in as well. And the notes on the machines, the handwritten notes we find really help with buy-in. As much as we want to be, the modern company on the cutting edge of, everything around print, sometimes you just can't beat someone writing down the note themselves, showing, this is what I got done this hour. And I think when the operators are having a good day, they take a lot of pride in that. When they're a little bit off target for the day, it really makes them kind of look at how do I get back on target, or what went wrong today that I can do better tomorrow. And we found that it's really been invaluable. Production has gone up just by measuring it. Yeah, I think any time that you kind of think about something, it's really easy to get caught up on maybe a couple of the expected issues, whereas once you kind of get the numbers in front of you, always you find a few areas that you don't expect to be as much of a problem as they are. On the office side of the business, I don't think we ever realized how much time we lost due to roll changes, for example. You measure it once and you have a rough idea that it takes 7 to 10 minutes to do a roll change, but until you kind of pull up the data or go down and observe at the machine, you don't realize the extra minute or two here and there that happens. As you look at our new press we have out there, the other big thing that we did is we added plate to unit. And that's another situation where you don't realize how much effort on the operator side goes into making sure that the press doesn't stop. By the time that they're done swapping out a set of plates by hand, they're pretty much back doing the same thing again for the next job. And so really either you have to stand at the machine all day and watch, or being able to pull data on the back end and really analyze it from that point of view. That way, saves us a little bit of time. It's hard to be everywhere at the same time in the building. Especially on the sales side, we've really weaponized this data to really kind of know where to target next. I think that's been the biggest thing for us. As you look at all of our equipment investments and the new building, really, we have more than enough what we'd call hardware on the floor, but the trick now is to get all the sales in the building. And so we've really kind of turned the data towards the sales arm of the business, and where am I underperforming relative to expected, where am I overperforming, what markets do we need to target, so that type of stuff has really been a big benefit for us. We use Starspinner's MIS system, and they have a kind of manual data entry tablet that we can use, or it's using the Heidelberg data terminals. And you end up getting good data still. You can know when the machine's running, if it's in production or make ready, but you don't get the full integration environment in which that the machine is shut off, it was in standby. Some of that stuff is very reliant on operators entering the data, which is getting a lot better, but it's never perfect.
So our newest Heidelberg press is a 8-color XL106 Perfector. Has LED UV drying on it, has a Cutstar, so we're running rolls in and creating sheets. Has plate to unit, so what we like to refer to as robotic plate hanging, because robots are big now. And logistics in the delivery of the machine for taking finished loads out. As we started speccing that machine, our goal was to create a machine that one operator could run. And the key on that being that the operator never needed to be in one place at one point in time. So all those things, have incremental increases in productivity, allows the operator to really focus on managing the machine and dealing with whatever, as opposed to actually printing. The machine is managing most of the true printing operation. That machine regularly will turn in shifts over 100,000 sheets. A run length of 3,200. And Heidelberg does tout that as being, if not the most productive, one of the most productive machines in the world. So this past summer, we put a Contiweb splicer on the machine, allowing us to not stop for roll changes. A lot of what makes that machine different from other similar machines, the Contiweb brings something to it. We did the original math on the Contiweb. We calculated it was about 4 points of OEE. At that point, we were about 45 OEE. So it was close to a 10% increase, which was significant. We are now regularly bumping in the 65 to 70% OEE. So that 4% was, or 4 points of OEE was part of that equation of getting us there. Other things have come together too. We believe it's the first in the world. It came out of a conversation with Rob Bozeman from Contiweb at Inkjet Summit 4 years ago. At that point, he was aware that we had a different long perfector with a Cutstar on it, and had asked if we ever thought about putting a splicer in front of it. And I looked at him and said, I figured people smarter than me figured it couldn't be done. And that was the beginning of this conversation that led us to where we are today. But I would have to say that our expectations were fully met in what we can accomplish with it. And it's just one more of the piece of making the job easier for the operator. Absolutely. It's one of the last pieces of the operator not needing to be in one place at one point in time. So he's got about an hour and a half from the time that a roll gets spliced till the next roll needs to be available. So what our goal here was to create these windows of time that he needs to be able to do something. So on plate to unit, it's about 15 minutes from the time that the last job gets pulled off the cassette to the next cassette needs to be available. So as we look at all these things, what we've done is given him the time to actually manage the machine, as opposed to having to anticipate, well, I got to be there for this roll change, or I got to be there to get the plates mounted or any of those things. As much as we see that improvement on the offset side of the house, on the inkjet, the OE improvement, the throughput improvement is actually greater than it was on the offset side. So a typical roll change on an inkjet press, maybe 12 minutes by the time you get done. Changing the roll and then walking the splice through the press. We buy that back roughly every 90 minutes, so significant improvement in productivity. Contiweb tells the HP press, here comes the splice. The HP press raises the print heads as the splice runs through the press. The Mueller-Martini Sigma line compact that's on the end of the machine actually also knows about the splice and then will eject enough signatures to build up a complete book. So it's, from the operator's perspective, there's really no involvement. So when we built this building, it's a new building, all three of the foundations that the presses are sitting on were all designed to support a press with a Contiweb.
No, we really view offset as part of the future of the business. For us, if you can be productive on offset, we find that there's really almost no way to beat kind of 5,000 and up at the very least. Our average offset run length right now is 3,000, and I don't know if I could get anywhere close to the productivity needed on inkjet. We run high coverage, we run gloss paper, and it's really an environment in which we feel that offset kind of eats everyone else's lunch on that.